Following the decision to dissolve his cabinet and form a new broad-based government, President William Ruto promised an inclusive approach to governance, improved service delivery, and a strengthened economic turnaround agenda. But how much of this has been achieved? From reshuffling the cabinet to introducing performance contracts for cabinet secretaries, we assess the successes, challenges, and missed opportunities that have shaped his administration so far. My name is Kennedy Kimani, and joining me in studio as we take a critical look at the broad-based government scorecard are Philip Mwangale, a law and governance expert, and Esther Nyonje, a political risk analyst. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Now, Philip, it's been 5 months since the head of state formed the broad-based government after sacking his entire cabinet. What motivated the head of state to do so?
Survival. I think William Ruto wanted to survive because the events leading up to the June protests pointed us to a direction where William Ruto was increasingly falling out of step and popularity with the people of Kenya, or at least a majority of the population. And the protests were a climax to his falling out of grace with the majority of the Kenyan people. And Raila Odinga became the only avenue for him to gain some support across the divide. And so the what we are calling the broad-based government, it's a little similar to what the South Sudanese have. Theirs is a little broader. It's called the Transitional Revitalized Government of National Unity. And I think we're heading there. If there's going to be a split, some disagreement between Raila Odinga, ODM, and William Ruto, some other people will be brought on board. But the new cabinet that he formed was a political compromise. Most especially because William Ruto wanted to survive. He had already gotten and garnered quite a lot of support, whether through inducement or not, in Parliament. And now he needed executive support. A little of his support within Parliament was withering away because of his tussle with Rigathi Gachagua and the bit of Mount Kenya that was now falling away from him. And therefore, he needed additional numbers, not just for his survival as president, but his survival given that there were plans in motion to impeach Rigathi Gachagua, even before the protest started. So this was just to garner him numbers. It has not had any positive impact in terms of development or any positive impact on the political space, but it has guaranteed William Ruto a few more months or 1 or 2 years peacefully. Yes.
Esther, let me pick your mind on the same. It's been just 2 years since President Ruto got into office. What made him, form a broad-based government?
Waswahili husema lisilo bidi hubudi. Or this is the other way around. Lisilo budi hubidi.
Yeah.
Whatever needs to be done has to be done. So when I look at the angle William Ruto had got at that time, he had lost popularity on the ground. Why is this? Because of his unfriendly and policies that are away from being people-centered. So unfriendly policies and policies that are away from the people that he termed as hustlers. Because you remember the time he was coming, he got to power with the narrative of the hustler narrative. And then getting into government, we saw everything but the hustler narrative. So he had lost popularity just 2 years into office. And then now climaxed by the protest, as he has said. You remember the Finance Bill 23 was passed. Very people unfriendly. 24 was almost being passed. And at that time, his administration was going all in with their chests, saying that there's nothing you're going to do. But now the protests brought an about turn. The Gen Z protest brought an about turn. It was not about Azimio, it was not about the politicians, but it was about the people. And so he was pushed to that point that he had to do something. Because it was going to crumble down. Everything was coming down. So what does he do? Because at that time it was about Azimio and Kenya Kwanza. So him being a tactful person, he decides to involve people from Azimio and push them into government. And looking at the positions that the people in government were given from outside, Opiyo Wandayi is at the energy sector. John Mbadi is at the treasury. Hassan Joho is at the mining. But the two critical industries, energy and taxes, have been given to the people in Azimio and also in Luo Nyanza. So this was a tax by William Ruto to bring them here so that the next time when he comes to tell us that bei ya mafuta haijashuka or taxes haijapanda, atasema if anything, if it's us, atasema si niliwaita nikawaeka nikawapea hizo ministries. So that's how I'm looking at it. It was a self-preservation tactic. And also he was trying to lure those people into, the people outside Azimio into government. And it also brings me to the BBI, where the BBI had a proposition to take away the winner-take-it-all system. If we can get away with the winner-take-it-all system after our elections, then we are seeing a replica of it through the broad-based government. And I'm hoping to talk about the pros and the cons, because like any other thing, it has the pros and the cons as we go on.
All right. Philip, I mean, the broad-based government is in place, but you still have issues with the health insurance, the SHA. The Adani deals. You actually saw the CS is defending the deals, of which that day the head of state actually cancelled the deal with the Adani. You also have the state of sports stadiums in our country. Chan is coming up. AFCON 2027 is coming up, but the stadiums are not yet complete in terms of the structures. I mean, we still have the same challenges. What was the end goal, with this broad-based government?
Well, aside from the survival of William Ruto, one of the things that we, and Esther has touched on it, one of the things that has plagued us for a very long time is that notion, winner takes it all. Though in my view, democracy is about the winner taking it all, the majority speaking and speaking resoundly. It is what the winner does with what they have taken that is the issue. In our case, the winner has almost always been corrupt. So the winner takes it all, but marginalizes it, or marginalizes the minority. The winner has taken it all, but marginalizes resources to their community. So that has been our problem. The problem has not been that the majority has, taken the vote. It happens in democracies across the world. The majority, takes the vote. The majority enacts policies and laws. That is what democracy is about. Our case has been different because we have a lot of, number one, ethnocentrism, because the tribal card is always in play. And number two, corruption has been the hallmark of our leadership. So the winner has taken it all, but they have eaten it all. That is our problem. The other bit that now is coming alive is this aspect of negotiated democracy. The essence of negotiated democracy is that you have sharing of positions in advance of elections. We have seen that in the counties. The northeastern counties are notorious for this. The clan elders come together and decide we are going to field this candidate and he should be unopposed. We have some counties that decide that because last elections we had a person from this clan, this election now we should have an individual from another clan. What we have with the Kenya Kwanza government is an inverted negotiated democracy. And we had that with Uhuru Kenyatta. We had that with Mwai Kibaki. And what happens in an inverted negotiated democracy is this. After elections, you now have the majority who are in the seat of power negotiating with a second majority. And again, that is a phenomenon that we find in our politics. We have two sets of majority. We have, and using the example of the last election, William Ruto had votes that, in comparison to Azimio and Raila Odinga's votes, they were almost on equal footing. They're almost at an equilibrium. So those are two sets of majorities. We have the minority who did not vote, the minority who decided not to, register or voted elsewhere other than Raila Odinga and William Ruto. So these two sets of majorities have in the last 3 elections or 3 government terms, negotiated their way into government. So that is a form of inverted negotiated democracy. And what that does is that you then have these people who have come into government, some politicians like calling it through the back door. Yeah. Moses Kuria is notorious for that back door statement. They come into government, and because they do not have a mandate from the ballot, they will go after their own affairs. And this is what we are going to see with this broad-based government. Those who have come in, whether it is in executive positions through cabinet, whether they will be coming in to replace certain individuals in parliamentary positions, they will be championing their own affairs and the affairs of their political parties. You are less likely to see development now, being sprung up in the opposition bases. You're less likely to see development being sprung up at the coast or being sprung up in Luo Nyanza. There will be some semblances of development projects, but it will not be, wholesome development. There will not be a wholesome turnaround in terms of the welfare of the people who are in those opposition bases. So this broad-based government could only be effective, number one, if William Ruto and whatever government he has now formed decide to fight the ills that we have been talking about. One of our problems as a country is misdiagnosis. Yeah. We misdiagnose our problems. And then after we have misdiagnosed, we go ahead to misprescribe. Now, what that does is that you would be left treating symptoms. Yet the real ailment is a problem. You've talked about SHA, you've talked about the state of our stadia.
The Adani deals.
The Adani deals. Let me begin with Adani, JKIA, for example. All of us agreed, at least those who have had interactions with JKIA and other airports, that we need that airport to be managed better. That is the problem. The solution, however, cannot be tasking that with a corrupt company that has a history of corruption across the world. The solution cannot be, encumbering that airport at very unreasonable terms. That cannot be the solution. When we talk about the energy sector, and again, Adani had a contract with the Kenyan government. There was a time when Davis Chirchir was talking about the unbundling of the transmission lines. That, again, cannot be a solution. Mm-hmm. You can't say that you're giving a contract to one company to unbundle the transmission lines, yet you have internal capacity within the country. Our engineers are exporting their labor to Ethiopia, to Uganda, electrical engineers. So that is a misdiagnosis of the problem and a misprescription. When you talk about stadia, we have the capacity to improve our sports infrastructure, but we keep misdiagnosing and prescribing because there is a money element to it. All these deals, the people who have gotten kickbacks, and if we, keep squeezing this rug for a while, it will come out. It is Adani themselves who will come out and say, we gave 100 million shillings to this individual, we gave this money to this individual. So that corruption element is still following us. If this government doesn't talk about corruption, and not just talk about it, but deal with corruption, then it will be a broad-based government of nothing.
Okay. Esther, we saw the Energy CS and the Treasury CS defending their Adani deals. They are both from the Azimio faction, ODM to be precise. The same day, we saw the head of state cancel the deals. You're not reading from the same script. What's your take on that?
When we talk about the broad-based government, I am not looking at it from only the executive part, because the government has 3 arms. There's the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive. So when we say broad-based government, it's really about all these other arms of government. So to me, all these people are in government. And when William Ruto sourced out actors from a different, we call them the opposition, into government, like I said, I can look at the pros and the cons, because one would argue that one advantage of that would be to address the marginalization, the sector or the regions that felt out after the elections. But as it plays, it's really political. So the cons outdo the pros there. Now, when the members from the opposition got into government, I actually do not see a problem if this expertise can bring their skills to sort out a problem here. All right. And when they come into that position as a CS, you're no longer a member of the ODM party. So typically, it's supposed to help to promote more inclusivity, to bring policy efficiency. But as our politics is right now, it's so political that we miss the point. I've had word on the ground, I've had severally, people say that William Ruto plays a one-man show. And I also wonder, when we talk about the university funding model, he will be at a town hall defending it. When we talk about She and Sha, you will find him standing somewhere defending it. When we talk about Adani, he will be somewhere else also defending it. So you only wonder, what are the people you are bringing, what is the work of your CSS and your PSS? Because if it's about university funding model, it is the CS is supposed to speak to us about it, not the president. So our politics is that, I'm not sure about this, but again, I've heard people say that William Ruto runs a one-man show, that he is the final show. So when I see these people support the Adani deal and then again speak from the other end of the mouth,
it's quite confusing there.
It's really
confusing.
confusing.
About inclusivity. Is it really a shift towards inclusivity, or was it a political strategy to neutralize the opposition when the Azimio MPs joined the government?
Of course, it was supposed to, like I said, it was a self-preservation measure for the president himself. And then when you look at it, there is the opposition has been weakened. So there's going to be no accountability on the side of bringing out if you see criticizing the government, because I heard Junet Mohammed say that until now, we have seen no mistakes with the government. So we are waiting for mistakes to be there so that we can speak out. But the truth is that he's speaking that way because they're now part of that government. So in the long term, we face a weakened democracy. That as that broad-based idea might suffice right now, what precedence is being sought out, and what is that aspect of democracy progressing, or is it retrogressing? Because as at now, who is keeping the government in check when the government and the other function is reading from the same table? But to say, for example, the legislators, whether you're in government or not, your role as a legislator is to oversight. So that does not mean that anything that comes to parliament as a Kenya Kwanza member or as a ODM member or whatever party, that you just pass it. I think at this time, each legislature should sit down and think critically and think through everything. And remember, we also have at county levels, not just speaking about national level only, even at county levels, the policies they pass, let them be more of at an oversight role or at an oversight angle, rather than just playing the politics alone. It's important to balance. If you're playing the self-preservation or the politics, also remember your role as a legislator in oversight and representation.
Philip, you talked about survival. President William Ruto actually made that move for him to survive.
Yeah.
Recently, we saw Makueni Senator Dan Manzo say that the broad-based government is actually at the mercies of Raila Odinga. If he wins the election at the AUC level, good for the government. But if he does not, then it's going to shake up things, come 2025. What's your take on that?
No, I don't think the outcome of the AUC elections will have any bearing on where Raila Odinga stands vis-a-vis William Ruto. Just the other day, we had him make some utterances that, were geared, towards telling us that his family within the government. He was talking about Rigathi Gachagua and how some mitegos had been set for him that, ended up, capturing Gachagua instead. In as much as I have held the view that I don't think Raila Odinga may win the AUC, even if he didn't win, he still has his interests firmly placed within the Kenya Kwanza government. The choice of cabinet secretaries, those crucial positions, that choice was not up to William Ruto. That choice was forced upon him. If it were up to William Ruto, he would have given, ODM, maybe tourism, mining, and SMEs, and that would be it. But because Raila Odinga had a bigger bargaining chip, he got those positions. So even if he didn't win AUC, there would be little interference with the arrangement. In any case, he would then have more time to influence, decisions within the Kenya Kwanza government through his proxies in cabinet. Now, as to whether this government arrangement is pegged on Raila Odinga, I think we have learned over time that William Ruto is a master political tactician, and it ends at that. Machinations, kupanga vitu hapa na pale, kutenga vitu hapa na pale, but it ends at that. I doubt that there would be anything that would shake them, barring any other adverse action from William Ruto, because William Ruto has been making too many mistakes since he got elected. He has squandered too many opportunities to redeem himself. There are those opportunities that will present themselves. Now, Raila Odinga losing that AUC position would be another opportunity presented to William Ruto to further strengthen his government. If he doesn't take that opportunity, then Raila Odinga could walk out. He can do that. He could say, we have engaged with this government for a few months and we have discovered the rot that is here. We regret, having dealt with these people, and now we are moving away. That could happen. But I foresee a scenario where just because Raila Odinga's proxies within cabinet and parliament have already dug into the soup bowl, they will not be willing to let go. Because if they move out of that government, if Raila Odinga and his party moves out of this broad-based government, then the only thing that William Ruto will be facing will be an impeachment. And there will be numbers to impeach him. I don't think he has the money to buy himself out of that if that happens. So we are dealing with human beings, and we're also dealing with a moral issue, a moral question. Our politicians are the most immoral of the population, I must say, because if you wanted to find, the smallest population where you could easily identify a murderer, you walk to Parliament Road. If you wanted to find a population where you'd easily, without struggling, identify people who are involved in shady business, people who have stolen from the public, you'd walk to Parliament Road. So it's also a moral question. They could turn around and everything would be up in smoke for William Ruto. There is also a geopolitical question. The fact that things are shifting heavily on the geopolitical front could also hand William Ruto a lifeline if he takes it. We now have a change in government in the United States. In as much as we don't admit it to ourselves often, the political footing of the United States has an effect on the continent. The war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia, is going to fizzle out towards the beginning of next year. That has an implication on the rest of the world, and especially Africa, because the food supply chain is bound to stabilize. And that would mean if William Ruto is keen on serving the people, not just earning himself a second term, but if he's keen on serving the people, then the cost of various commodities would go down. That again would give him a lifeline. All these things are dependent on the people in these positions we're talking about serving the people or thinking about the interests of the people. If they continue in their selfish manner, then it will be a very short lifespan for William Ruto.
All right. Time and again, we've seen the president say that there's no room for failure in his government. And you actually saw the CSE sign the performance contracts 2 times, since Ruto got into office. How have these performance contracts been monitored?
I'm not sure about how performance contracts are being monitored, because I know public servants are supposed to sign performance contracts in line with the Public Service Commission and the job roles and all. But when it comes to CSS and PSS, we've seen them sign performance contracts. The first one led to an overhaul of the cabinet. And then now they've signed this second, this time again, they've signed a performance contract. But, what needs to be felt is what we need to see the economy changing. In his State of the Nation address, he stated that inflation has gone down from 9% to 2.4%. And critics were on it, saying that he focused mostly on the macroeconomic sectors or the macroeconomics aspects, because if he talks about there is more supply of milk, if he talks about the sugar industries being reverted, if he talks about education is doing well, the health sector is doing well, agriculture is doing well, of course, because of the rains, maybe the price of maize has gone down. That is what is on the papers, and that is what is being put down in those offices. But when you come to the ground, the small and the medium scale businesses and the people at the grassroots, are we really feeling that effect? Because if I have a neighbor who is worried about how they're going to join school next year because of the confusion in the JSS system, or they lack money to, lecturers have just been on strike, and children have been at home, they can't go to school. SHA and SHE is not working in most hospitals. And then we also get the report from the church, because at the time, the State of the Nation address, after the performance contract and then the State of the Nation address, we also got the report from the church claiming that these things are not working on the ground. And then everyone outside is seeing it, but not the people in government. The people who are signing those performance contracts, they need to tell us what are they signing, because they want to make their own exams and mark their own exams and say everything is working, we are on the right track. But the church is speaking. The Catholic Church has spread out almost in all areas of this country where the government cannot even reach. That the people who are who access the people at the grassroots levels, when they say that this SHE is hurting people in hospitals, people cannot access medical care, they know what they're saying. So we really need to sit as the point of the people. And Ndindi Nyoro, the chairman of the budget committee, said that it is the people who should tell them that the economy is working, not the other way around. So as they sign this performance contract, I said I don't know what are the parameters to indicate that this sector is working or this cabinet sector is performing. But generally, there's a disconnect between the executive and the people who are supposed to be feeling this service delivery. And also he said that the dollar has stabilized. Also he said that the price, okay, he said that the price of maize has gone down. But if you walk around, na ulize watu kwa ground what is happening, because I also walk on the ground a lot uko kwetu Vihiga County. There's that disconnect between whatever is being said in the executive, in the offices, and the people who are supposed to be feeling that the service, the people who are supposed to be receiving the service delivery.
All right, Philip, Esther says there's a disconnect between the government and the Kenyans, and in your own opinion, have there been any noticeable improvements in public service delivery since the restructuring of the cabinet?
No, I don't think there has been any improvement. In any case, I think things are worsening. And when you're talking about the public health, the state of public health with the social health insurance, that is just an example of how much or how far removed the leaders are from the people. And we don't need to go very far in assessing how that has happened. The cabinet members of cabinet today are an exemplification of how far the government is removed from the people. These are individuals who are out of touch with reality. You look at, now that we're talking about health, you look at the CS for health, and she doesn't seem to understand what is going on in the healthcare system. And across board, across the whole cabinet. One of the things that, and this has happened across the years, you have a scenario where politicians campaign, they give us promises, they get into office, and they will start releasing those promises in piecemeal. They go to a rally somewhere, they go to a funeral somewhere, and then release a small dose. Oh, I promised I'll do this in 2022. Tomorrow you will see a contractor on ground here. After they have left that meeting, that will be the end of that affair. They will go to another funeral, another rally somewhere, and then release a small dose of what they had promised to do. So if this subsists, we'll get to a point where the June 2024 protests will be a very small speck in the eye of William Ruto. And I would liken what William Ruto, the position he's in now, to Napoleon Bonaparte. There was a time Napoleon had gone for a battle in France, in Russia, and he lost that battle. He faced a mutiny after he came from that battle in Russia, and he was exiled to Elba. And after serving that exile time for a period, he came back and he was given a new lease of life. The military and the people of France gave him a new lease of life, supported him up to the time of the Battle of Waterloo, where he lost and eventually died. William Ruto is in that space where he has been given a fresh lease of life. It is what he does with what he has been given that will, dictate where this country heads in the next 2 years, and where that will leave us in the years to come. Because if the people arise against William Ruto or against this government, collectively, William Ruto, Raila Odinga, and every other person who has coalesced around the Kenya Kwanza government, if the people arise again, the structures of government as we know them will crumble. And we'll then get into an arduous task of rebuilding what has taken us decades to rebuild. So we must make sure that we make what we have with us work for us rather than against us.
All right. As you conclude, Esther, in your opinion, has President Ruto's government lived up to its promises?
No, you can answer that question yourself. No, not a bit. Because, the history of our country is that there has been an equal distribution of national resources. But we've always had a problem with resource allocation, and that is what has led to ethnicity. And then there has been a lot of attention in the presidential office where communities will see if we are there, then we are going to get access to the resources. And if we are out, then we are going to be left out. That has been our problem all this time. So we are really facing a problem when it comes to corruption and ethnicity. And I feel if we can crack this, then we are going in the right path. But when we voted in William Ruto, I would like to say that I will give it to him in the fact that he was able to break that glass ceiling about changing the narrative from a community to, because he got into power with a hustler dynasty narrative. So anyone can be seated out there and say that I can be president. I don't have to come from a particular community, or I don't have to come from a particular social class. That he broke. But when he got there, we put him there with the expectation that he's going to aid in fighting corruption and ensuring that there is resource allocation, service delivery, and good running of democracy and the rule of law. That was our expectation. And he was so detailed in his manifesto. He talked about women inclusivity. He talked about youth empowerment. He talked about service delivery, lowering the cost of fuel, lowering the cost of maize flour, making agriculture favorable, businesses favorable, the hustler narrative, the hustler fund, you remember. But where he missed out one was with his choice of the cabinet secretaries at the first time, and then he revamped on that, and now we are here. So we do not feel it because he has not shown enough bravado in fighting corruption, number one. And that is our biggest ail. Because even at this point where it had to take a young man to bring out the loophole in the Adani deal,
Yeah.
and everyone else jumped on the ship. And we've been singing about Adani deal, and there was also JKIA, Occupy JKA from that time. That was in July. Did it have to take him all that time to hear that Adani has been indicted in the USA, and then he drops Adani deal on that day? People have been talking. So number one, the president is not listening to the people. And he's not listening because maybe he's being surrounded by people who are feeding him the wrong things about the state of the economy or the mood of the ground.
Or he's just the wrong person.
He is the wrong person. He's just the wrong person. And also he is focused, ruthlessly focused on his ambition, that he thinks whatever I will do, I have to get to this position of power come the next election. So he's about corruption. The corruption is the ailing, but he is not facing it. Instead, he is getting into a lot of politics.
Do you think he needs time?
Well, constitutionally, the only time to oust him is maybe in 2027, or if he's impeached, which that's not going to happen, because you see what he's doing, he's consolidating his power. So his ruthless focus is mostly on his politics. Re-election. Because when he had that rift with Rigathi Gachagua, and saw that he's losing track in the mountain, he has lost touch in the mountain, what did he do? He went to the other regions, consolidated them, put them in his corner, and now he's trying to lure other regions. You even said that resource allocation may not be in the regions where the opposition is, but you might find that I found out that he has been spending time he went to Kisumu, he spent 3 billion in Kisii County for a treatment center. So you see, development might start shifting to those areas because he's trying to lure those areas to his corner to try to consolidate those numbers that were left out during the last elections, to consolidate himself. So he's doing everything apart from what alituambia hiyo wakati wa serikali ni ya mama mboga.
All right, time is not on our side, and as we conclude, out of 10, what score will you give this government?
Would you allow me just to mention that the only glass ceiling that Ruto broke is the ceiling, corruption ceiling. That is the only ceiling he broke. But out of 10, if there was a sub-zero, I would give William Ruto a sub-zero.
Meaning he has not done anything for those 2 years?
The things that we are seeing are incidental. If we didn't have any leadership at all, those things would be happening because we are in a capitalistic economy. Business will still be going on. So there are things that have happened that are incidental to what William Ruto has been doing. But if you look at what he really has been doing, then you are really looking at the success of corruption. And I don't think that warrants a score at all. But he still has time to redeem himself. That we must say. He has time to redeem himself. He has time to cut on the extravagance of government. The broad-based government is coming in with more extravagance. If he wants to serve the people of Kenya, he has to cut on extravagance. He has to cut on corruption. And that would mean cutting off a little of his arm because, yeah, he's part of the corruption.
Yeah. All right, Esther, out of 10.
Out of 10, I would give him maybe just a 1, because I don't think he's also there just sitting and doing nothing. But the thing is that we are not feeling it. And if there was anything he was to do right now, I agree with Philip when he says he still has time to redeem himself. He can take an about turn and say, okay, I'm going to come out strong with the fight against corruption. We're going to make this broad-based government work and shift his focus to serving Kenyans rather than just playing the politics.
All right, you're so mean with the score, but anyway.
Well, minus 1 plus 1, 0. So yeah.
Oh my days. Anyway, thank you so much for making time for us. That has been Philip Mwangale, a law and governance expert, and Esther Nyonje, a political risk analyst. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you too.
Thank you so much for making time to watch this interview. On behalf of the amazing team that made this interview a success, enjoy the rest of your programming. My name is Kennedy Kimani.